Yo guys, so in today's video, I'm basically going to be breaking down how I made this exact render inside of Blender. Let's hop in. I am going to kind of start walking you through the whole process that would go into making something like this. I hate Blender 3.4.3 with the new system when it comes to reorganizing all this stuff. But yeah, cool. So when it comes to making a model like this, what I will always do is I'll basically start out with a cube like this. As you do, I mean, if you want, you can go delete the cube, add in a new one. Now, what I would do is I'll always kind of work with a mirror. Now, I can kind of go give this as my base piece. I can go like scale it down a little bit, maybe like this. And then I'm going to kind of make a bunch of legs, or 4 legs. But I can go, so Shift D to duplicate, Alt S resets it back. I can go scale, Shift S. Now I kind of just made it a little bit thinner. What I want to do, I'm just going to go Shift A, add an empty plane axis. So now it's in the center of my scene. And now what I can do is I can go add a mirror modifier to one of the legs and set the mirror object to be the empty. And then I can also go Y. And now I've got a leg piece that I can move around and align up everything as I want. Okay, so that's pretty good. And yeah, so always my process when it comes to making models like this is make a blockout first. And the blockout is basically going to be using all these simple shapes. And you can use some simple modeling tools. So like maybe you're going to bevel it and basically take all of these and use it to make your shape. Okay, and then the reason I do this is basically because it's a lot easier to make a shape throughout, like with these, and to be able to edit all of this is a lot easier than if you already added all of the detail in. Because if I don't like this, like in terms of from the front view, I'll probably want these pieces to be a bit thinner, and one thing, one thing be a bit thinner. So I'll basically go select them and I'll use something called the local transform. Now, what local transform is basically, if I go to move tool right here, you can see Z is up, X is side to side, Y is back and forth. If I go local, you can see now Z is up and down like this and kind of specifically to this. If I go rotate them, you can see it keeps on carrying rotating with it. But what's nice is now I can go scale Y and I can make it like thinner like that and it doesn't mess up my model. But yeah, so that, and so I can kind of work on this. I can even bring the legs out, I think, and then maybe make it even forward, so like there. And then we'll kind of just, so yeah, separate it off a little bit, and then we can go give it a, I'm kind of saying this like I haven't already made it, but I'm kind of remaking it again. But yeah, so I'm just going to kind of give it a leg piece like this. Okay, and you see, this is a lot quicker of an iteration than if we did a bunch of details and now we're like, oh wait, actually I don't like this proportion or something like that. So yeah, first thing you need to do is always go and make your block out first. Okay, so there, and what you can also do is also select a mesh and go copy to selected on that mirror, or yeah, and you'll see now it's over there. What I can also do is I might just get rid of my Y axis because I don't need it duplicated to both of them. So there, and then we can basically just copy it across to any other meshes we need. Now, when it came to this mesh, I would kind of just start using simple techniques. I did have a reference board. Actually, I think it's right here. So you can see I have a reference board with a bunch of like different mechs like this, and I basically just keep that on my second monitor. And the reason I have a bunch of references is basically because if I have a bunch of references, then I have more ideas of what I can do. If I run out of ideas, then I have something that I can just take and start using. Okay, and yeah, so that's why basically I keep so many. I basically just start adding a bunch of them. I usually use Pinterest. Honestly, Pinterest has been starting to annoy me more in terms of how much AI art is there. Um, like it might be fun unless it just sucks. So if the art sucks, then that kind of doesn't help. Yeah, if my solidify is not working well, go Control A and scale, and you see that fixes it immediately because the scale is not super messed up like that. Control A scale 111 works a lot better. Cool. Yeah, so adding the solidify, just add some thickness to it, and yeah, I'll usually kind of do something like that. Then what I did, I also went and added kind of these cubes to kind of be the footstools or like I don't know, base pieces like this. Line up with the floor, and you can scale Shift S if you need to make it like bigger or not over. And then you can take these. I'm just going to go G and Z, and because we changed it back to changed it to local, it'll always work. Okay, and then with like low poly, I always find that you kind of have to decide firstly how much detail you're going to add, but also I think I kind of fall into the trap of like sometimes thinking like you can't add that much detail in terms of like sometimes it's the detail that takes it and makes it look not just lazy and simple, because you actually have to push yourself, get something better. And I don't think it's that difficult to add more detail. It's basically just going to take more time. So yeah, and so it's just knowing where to place it, because you can't just start adding detail at random. You actually have to be intentional with it. And yeah, something I've heard people talk about is kind of different levels, like the tertiary level. So you kind of add the base shapes, and that's going to be the stuff that like contributes to the actual silhouette. The silhouette is kind of the like what's it? Is like the view like this. So the base shapes, and this is what you can even do, is go like separate your scene and have a view like this. The way you set this up is go to your viewport overlays, change your material to single, just drag it down to black, and you can also go to flat if you want. So you can even make it whatever color like that. If you just go to flat and just get rid of all the cavity shadow type like that. And I'm just going to bring up my background color so I can actually see some contrast. But yeah, so you can see you can have a view like this and then leave it there so you can always tell what's actually affecting your silhouette and what's not. Okay. Obviously, I could have used a mirror modifier with this. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I'm basically just winging it and making something cool. But yeah, so here, obviously we're going to actually copy this mirror modifier. So select this and copy to selected. Okay. Yeah, and that's kind of my general process for blockouts. Then, as you go along, you're basically going to start adding and refining more detail. I think one thing I kind of messed up with was the top bit in the model was a little bit boring. It was kind of just a big flat piece with not much detail, but yeah, it is what it is. I finished the model. Um, but yeah, so one thing that I did do that I found was quite cool was basically I took this piece or this mesh, and then I was kind of doing a array. And if you've never done this before, I'll walk you through how to do it. So basically, I'm going to go mesh circle. I brought this down to probably something like 5 or 6. So 5 vertices like that, and I went RX90, and then just scale it down. Okay, so it brought it to something like this. I'm going to go Control A, scale, Control A, rotation, just so we go and reset those back to 0. Then I can go Shift A, add in a empty. So empty, usually I go maybe go add like a sphere, like that, and we can just bring back down the size like this. Okay, so like that. Now, what I can do is I can go add a array modifier. Now, if you've used array before, you'll see it basically goes and adds it along like that. But that's not what we're going to be using it for today. If I go turn off relative offset, which is basically how much it moves across, I can turn that off. I can change it to object offset. Now we can add it to the empty, so there, and you'll see it does nothing. But you'll see if I start moving it around, it starts following it. Rotate it, it rotates. Now what I could do, I could go to edit mode, select this, and then you could just go G and X, pull this over, and now if I go to object mode, it's done nothing. Now what we actually have to do is rotate it. So if we go rotate, you'll see now it's actually spinning around. So what I could do is I have five pieces. Now, what I'll do if I have 5 pieces is I can rotate this like this. So I'm going to go 360, and you can actually do math within these values. So I can just go divided by 5. There we go, 72. Take this, I can just go push it in until I get them basically lined up. And the reason I have this is for like a Gatling gun type thing. So I basically just go extrude this out, maybe even push it out a little bit, and then yeah, just work on it like this. I can extrude, scale, extrude, or I could have just gone extrude out like this, and then just taken this piece and extruded it. So extrude, scale, shift, Y, like this. Yeah. So there we go. Looking pretty cool. And I can just go fill this in, inset, and extrude it back. Cool. And you'll see, so not really able to see all the way to the end anyway. It'll be too dark with the shading. But yeah. Cool. That's the blockout. So let's just hop back over to the original file. Okay, so you can basically see all the extra like details and stuff that I added in. Like so basically it's basically simple tools. Like you can see basically the base shape. I basically went and started cutting stuff, and if you want to actually keep your topology clean, you can basically start adding these because these are supposed to be quads. I don't know why I just said basically like 10 times, but yeah. So then we can just go J to join these across, give it some actual proper topology in terms of there. So you can see this is just a side-to-side mirror. So actually the legs are separate. I basically went and scaled them up. And yeah, so here, these are a mirror based off of this. So I went and added, we can see, move it, and it's based off of this base foot piece. So you can go and add mirrors based on those as well. And it also relies on the local. So if you rotate it in the object mode, whereas if you rotate in edit mode, it doesn't actually change anything. Okay. And actually, one thing that was quite cool was making low poly cables. Now, I always thought that I wasn't able to really use cables inside of low poly because, well, the curves are always too high res. But what you can actually do is, by default, so if I go Shift A, add in a curve, Bezier, and I can go take it like this. I can go to the curve properties and bring up the depth. Okay, and you see that is way too high resolution for my model. But what I can do is I can go to the round, change this to like 1. So 1 will give it a 6-sided shape. So unfortunately 0 makes it 4 sides. So you can't actually get a 5-sided shape. I don't think we can get decimals, obviously. So it's 1 or it's 0. Yeah. You can change full caps on if you want. Up to you. And then what I can also do is change the render preview U. Okay. So from here, we can see whatever. I can go drop this down, and you'll see as I go down, it changes the resolution of it like this. And all of this is based on the distance, but it doesn't change the amount based on like this. So the gap between is always have the same amount of edges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we have 7, and so it should be the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only has 6. Makes no sense. But oh well. Yeah, so you see, as I extrude, it keeps the same amount of vertices. Now, you can scale each piece, go change it, whatever. But yeah, so you can also take these, right-click, subdivide, or it should be, yeah, right-click. And then, so if I go bring these together, you can see I can go kind of add more detail. So if you want to do that, you can even keep a lower resolution and then kind of use that method so that you're not adding a bunch of edges. Or obviously, you can take these, we can go like object, convert to mesh, and then obviously go and delete some of these edges that are unnecessary. But yeah, cool. I'm just going to leave that. But yeah, so there was go, and I can actually make some nice curves, and obviously could have gone and added even more and made it look really cool. But yeah, I was just trying to get a cool little model done real quick. Nice. Now, if you kind of learn some of the tools, you'll basically be able to see, like, all of the stuff that I've done is using pretty simple stuff. Like, I mean, this is just a cube with a bevel on it. This is a cube, added one bevel on this edge right here, and then just took the edge, the front, extruded it, or like insetted it and pushed it out a little bit. Yeah, and then similar thing like this, basically just a cube, extruded down, beveled the edge, extruded that out. It's all pretty much very similar. Yeah, I already explained to you how I did this. I actually went and just added a bright piece right here. It changed, so it kind of just changes between, so like if I work in Eevee, I think I've also messed around with the glow properties. And by the way, if you have used Blender before version 4.2 or Blender 4, something like that, I can't remember exactly when they changed Eevee. Basically, you have to actually go and add the bloom in yourself. Now, bloom is the little globe around here, and then the ambient occlusion, which is basically in the shadows, you can add more like shadow to it. You also have to go and add that in yourself. And my Blender is crashing. Fun times. Okay, here we are. I'm just going to go change back to Eevee, and I can go render view. Will it crash again? I just did this. No, it doesn't. Hell yeah. Cool. Okay, so you see, this is what I was like. I think I was also working in material preview, and then I was working with no scene rolled, scene art, whatever. But yeah, so you can see kind of like this, and you can see pretty simple setup. And what I can do is in the compositing, I have a couple different nodes. You don't actually need like half these, but oh, it's fine. But yeah, so you see image and the ambient occlusion. To enable ambient occlusion, you go to this little square thing here, ambient occlusion tab. Take a multiply, so plug it in, and then you can see here, if we go previous, this is the ambient occlusion. Basically just goes and adds shadows in the crevices of your model. Okay, so you can go take that and mix them together with a multiply. So you can see basically that's it without it, that's it with it. And I bet you can kind of get it in. So if I go turn on the ray tracing, which I should actually have. I don't know why I didn't add it on. Okay, so you see there. Then we can go add a little bit of ambient occlusion on top of that. And then what I go do is add a lens distortion. Now that basically just goes and adds, so I go here, you make it like bubble up like that, and you can go add some kind of like, what's it, chromatic aberration to the sides. I just like the look of it. And this doesn't matter if you're making it for a game, because obviously the render doesn't matter. Then I just basically go add some glare, which goes and add some bloom around this. So go glare, change it to bloom, or you can use fog glow, which is the old version. I bring the mix down pretty low because like a mix of 0 is pretty bright. So I basically go like negative 0.9, so something like that. Threshold, if you bring it up, it'll basically not highlight anything else. So you'll see if I go to rendered, we actually have some lighting. If I go bring this threshold down, you can see everything kind of gets highlighted, and you can also check the mix structure. So as I bring the threshold up, you can see what is actually getting some glow or bloom on it. But yeah, so you see something like that. And yeah, that's most of how I went about actually making this model, texturing it, and rendering it. Cool. I will see you in the next video. And if you want, go check the things like the links in the description for my courses and all of that fun stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.